U.S. intelligence agency mind control.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Nablus, in the occupied West Bank, a funeral procession is underway at the time of this broadcast for the Turkish-American activist Ayşenur Ezgi Aygi. She was killed by the Israeli military in the occupied West Bank on Friday. Ayşenur was a 26-year-old recent graduate of UW, the University of Washington in Seattle. She was shot dead by Israeli forces during a weekly Friday protest against illegal Israeli settlements in the town of Beita. According to eyewitnesses, Israeli soldiers fired tear gas and live ammunition, forcing the protesters to disperse down a hill on the edge of the town. Israeli activist Jonathan Pollack, who was on the scene, said the shooting took place about half an hour after the protesters had dispersed and the situation was calm. He said Ayşenur and other foreign volunteers were standing about 200 yards from the Israeli military. He described what happened.
So after retreating from the hilltop, I was right there where the garbage can is, and it was completely quiet already back then. The clashes had dissipated, and then after 10 or 15 minutes, it was completely quiet. I heard two distinct shots of live ammunition. One hit a metal object, and then I retreated a little bit backward into the olive grove, and then a few seconds.
What?
Nothing. I would have just put American instead of Turkish.
This is a Turkish-ass name. I assumed she was Turkish. I didn't look into it.
Turkish-American, yeah.
After maybe 2 or 3 seconds, a second shot, and I heard someone calling my name and saying in English, help us, we need...
Yeah, it was a Turkish-ass name. Of course she is.
But she's American.
Help, come over. So I raced through the olive grove down there. Her head was gushing with blood. She was lying here. I put my hand behind her back to try and stop the bleeding, which didn't stop.
So what you're telling me is this guy had no emergency care training.
She was shot in the head. So.
Oh, was she? He said her back.
She said her head was bleeding, and I tried to stop it bleeding.
I swear I heard him say his back, like her back. But whatever.
Well, he's saying he put his hand in back.
Sure,
like,
okay.
And saw a direct line of sight from where the soldiers were on that rooftop, some 200 meters away. I quickly took her pulse. It was very, very weak. Her eyes were rolled back. Her skin started becoming yellow. And we panically called for the ambulance to come. By the time this had happened, it was completely quiet here. We were standing for 10, 15 minutes without anything happening. The reason why no one was filming is because it was completely quiet. And then all of a sudden, 2 shots. And the sniper or the soldier that was there took a kill shot. And this happens in context. This isn't an isolated incident. It happens in the context of the 17 people who were killed in demonstrations in Beita since 2021. We have heard nothing about them because they're not Americans.
That was Israeli activist Jonathan Pollack. Ayşenur was taken to a hospital in Nablus, where she was pronounced dead on arrival. The governor of Nablus told reporters Saturday an autopsy confirmed that Ayşenur was, quote, killed by an Israeli occupation sniper's bullet to the head, unquote. The Israeli military said in a statement it was, quote, looking into reports that a foreign national was killed and that, quote, details of the incident and the circumstances in which she was hit are under review, unquote. The statement added Israeli
forces... I fucking hate them so much,
See,
bro.
but under review is not good enough.
Shut up.
Like
they called in the shot. It was approved.
Yeah. There's no way that they didn't get approval for it. There's no fucking way. So that is not good enough. Where is the United States?
We're looking
this
into
should
it.
Be a diplomatic incident.
Nah, you can, as long as you're Israel, you can kill Americans. It doesn't matter.
Had, quote, responded with fire toward a main instigator of violent activity who hurled rocks at the forces and posed a threat to them, end quote.
Okay, where?
The Turkish government has said it holds Israel as a response.
Yeah, where's
what was video? How is she hurling these rocks with a fucking catapult? Fucking, did she build a trebuchet?
For Ayşenur's death. On Saturday, the Turkish president,
Look
Recep
at this
Tayyip
bot
Erdogan,
using an
blasted
alternate
Israel for the
keyboard
killing.
to try and get
Yeah.
around the filter.
Gencecik bir evladımızı Ayşenur Ezgi Eygi.
Yesterday, they heinously murdered our young child, Asnur Ezegi
Can't get
Ayegi.
past
To
the
date,
block
they have
button.
killed over 40,000 innocent civilians, including 17,000 children. They attacked barbarically and shed blood indiscriminately, whether it be children, women, youth, or the elderly.
Meanwhile, the White House has called on Israel to investigate the attack. This is Secretary of State
I know.
Nancy.
I heard that as well.
I think she said, I know.
Meanwhile, the White House has.
Indiscriminately, whether it be children, women, youth, or the elderly.
Meanwhile,
The mic
Yeah.
must have been off, and she was talking to the back room.
Mm-hmm.
the White House has called on Israel to investigate the attack. This is Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking on Friday.
First, I just want to extend my deepest condolences, the deepest condolences of the United States government to the family of Ayşenur Ezgi Aygi.
Here's your
we
Applebee's gift
deplore
cards.
this tragic loss. Now,
Our
the
condolences.
most important thing to do is to gather the facts, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. And we are intensely focused on getting those facts. And any actions that we take are
This
driven by
isn't
the facts.
easy.
So first things first, let's find out exactly what
Looks
happened,
like it.
and we will draw the necessary conclusions and consequences from that.
No, you
Aishinur's
won't.
family has
And no, you
called for
won't.
an
And no, you
independent
won't.
investigation, saying, quote, "We welcome the White House's statement of condolences, but given the circumstances of Aishinur's killing, an Israeli investigation is not adequate. We call on President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Secretary of State Blinken to order an independent investigation into the unlawful killing of a U.S. citizen and to ensure full accountability for the guilty parties," end quote.
It's not
Yeah,
our land.
the guilty
It's
party
not our
being
land.
the IDF and
It's
the
not our
Israeli
land.
government.
It's not our
Hmm?
land. It's not our land. What jurisdiction do we have to go in there and force an investigation? That's the thing. And that's
It's an
it's like, well,
yeah.
they can say, well, if you don't let us in, we'll restrict weapons. Well, then you're
Go to the
you're just
Pal.
not-
No, no, no. What
you're
would
just
be
not-
funny?
It's just not realistic. That's not how
What
the
if they
United
went
States
around
works, you
Israel
know?
and went to the Palestinian Authority?
It's still just like, it's not how the United States works.
So,
We don't do like independent investigations like that.
so what?
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
Change the course. Do it.
they like, good on them for calling for it. It's just like,
Yeah.
I just hate the United States, and like I find anything like that just so empty. Like, I don't even see the point in like asking them to do anything. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get you.
At least 17 Palestinian protesters have been killed in Beita in protests against illegal Israeli settlements since 2020. For more, we're joined by two guests. Amado Sasson, which is a pseudonym, is a Filipino-American citizen who was shot in the leg by the Israeli forces 1 month ago today,
Damn.
on August 9th, during the weekly protests in Beita in the occupied West Bank. Sasson was volunteering with the International Nonviolent Protective Presence Group, FAZA, the same group Aishinur was with, along with being a volunteer with the International Solidarity Movement. Amado Sasson is a high school English teacher from Jersey City in New Jersey. We're also joined by Juliet Majid. She was friends with Aishinur at the University of Washington. Juliet Majid is now a PhD student at North Carolina State University. She's joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina. Juliet, let's begin with you. Tell us who Aishinur is.
Juliet, let's begin with you.
Just
Why are you
graduated
green?
from UW, from the University of Washington in Seattle, where she grew up since, well, her family came there from Turkey since before she was 1 year old.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for saying who she is.
So you go.
She's no longer with us, but
I was right.
her spirit and her
Huh?
She's
love
Turkish.
and her who she
Yeah,
was and
she's
who she impacted in our
Turkish-American.
community are still with us every single day.
Naturalized. She's Turkish.
The family, I think, in their statement had beautiful, beautiful words
America
that
first.
I want to uplift on who she was. She was amazing, a staunch
one.
advocate, an
I
organizer.
mean,
She
they
was passionate
specifically
about
do
justice.
wounding shots, like shooting kids in the legs and stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
But, you know, but I'm sure, like, they certainly don't I mean, they do shoot people in the head too, but
She was compassionate and kind, and she wore her heart on her sleeves. She always made you feel like you were listened to. You never had to think when talking to her, you just had to be That's how she was. She just was herself, nobody else. She inspired everybody she ever met. She inspired me, and I know that going forward, I will keep holding her in my heart as well.
Juliet, I know this is incredibly difficult for you. She was killed on Friday. This is just Monday. And our deepest condolences to you and to Aisha Noor's family, which I know extends beyond her own family, but to the whole community at UW. Those who were involved, like you and her, in the encampment there, like there were encampments all over the United States protesting the Israeli war on Gaza. Can you talk about her activism? You talked about how she inspired you, and also about learning of her death on Friday. She had just gotten to the occupied West Bank, right? Did a training on Wednesday and was killed on Friday. And you're now a student in North Carolina.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. So I met Aisha Noor at the University of Washington. We both graduated in June. More than just the student encampment, she was a community organizer in Seattle. She was always volunteering to help.
This is hard to do, by the way.
In the community,
What?
in the campus, before the encampment and after.
Like somebody you personally know just died a few days ago.
Oh, and going on camera and talking about them.
Yeah. Very hard to do.
Yeah. It's impressive. Also, have you noticed that the Georgia shooting, it's the same girl on all the interviews? It's the same girl they're trotting out for all the interviews.
Is it the same clip?
No. New interviews, different interviews. Same girl. Just thought that was interesting.
So many people met her during the encampment. She was just always around, always willing to help. She moved in a wonderful grassroots way that was just always willing to assist wherever it was needed. She never asked much of herself. She always asked what others wanted from her, what they needed from her, how she could help, what she could do. She was very passionate about the student movement at UW. She was very involved on campus. And the community is absolutely reeling, heartbroken, trying to come to terms with what happened. It was, as you said, so recent on Friday. So many, I think, community members learned through the media on Friday morning. An absolutely heartbreaking way to find out for those who loved her. And there are so many. Yeah.
Like to have just gotten there as well is fucking crazy. Like, that's just bad luck at the end of the day. But also, more so, he should still be alive.
Yeah.
Like, that's the real point here. There was no need for Israel to shoot her dead. What was she doing?
Just think about how wild this is, okay? So you're an international person who's coming to a protest, right? And one of the first things you do is pick up rocks to throw at soldiers, armed soldiers.
Yeah, doubt it.
No. Didn't happen. No.
Yeah, it's complete horseshit.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's so obvious a cop-out. And then Israel's going to do their investigation, and they're going to come out and say, we did nothing wrong. Israel investigated Israel and found Israel did nothing wrong. Wow. Surprise, surprise.
This is the second loss in the UW community, because on October 7th, Chaim Katzman was killed when Hamas came over from Gaza. We spoke to his sibling, Noy, who also immediately called for peace and said that their brother, Chaim, was a peace activist as well.
I can only speak to who I knew, and that was Aisha Noor, who was upholding a long tradition of international observers in the West Bank, who was deliberately killed while she was peacefully observing. I want to uplift what the family has asked for, which is an independent U.S. investigation. I don't want to just rely on the Israeli military to investigate themselves. An American citizen, a member of our community, an American human rights activist who was passionate about the liberation of all peoples here in the States and abroad, was taken from us. We want an investigation. We want our government to, I want our government to investigate this and to hold the guilty parties accountable.
Juliet, we're joined here in New York by another activist who joined those protests in Beta, just as Aisha did last week. Amado Sisson, not his real name, a pseudonym, is a Filipino-American Jersey City teacher who was shot in...
Okay, we are moving on.
Is his hair sticking out through his hat?
Yes, it was.
That's badass. Did she just turn and say go away?
I think she said, "Oh my god," because she didn't realize that they were being vultures around her. Is there like a tradition of covering the body in the headscarf? Like the scarf thing?
Normally, they leave faces open and exposed. If they can.
Okay,
If the face is
they
not
must not have
exposed,
been.
if the face is not exposed, they normally they'll wrap it so just the face is out. They'll do like a head wrap.
Okay. Okay. So it must be pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. See,
Okay.
they do shows. It's normally how they do it. Something like that.
I don't speak Arabic.
Okay, no. So, what he said is,
you actually, I forget that you actually do speak some.
So he was saying that she was he's saying
Shahid, yeah, I heard that.
هنا وتدفن على أرض فلسطين إلى جانب شهداء فلسطين.
Yeah.
Get any of that?
She was in Palestine. She came here because she loved Palestine.
هذا الأمر إلى إشعار آخر سيعلن عنه ونبلغكم عنه. شكرا.
Okay.
First, I just want to extend.
Fuck off.
Aisha Aidi was an activist with the International Solidarity Movement. She was in the village of Beta with others to protect Palestinian farmers from Israeli settlers on Friday. The shooting happened in the early afternoon
I don't think
after
we're going to get
prayers.
much more out of this.
When we
we know what happened.
arrived there, outside the garden, there was already Israeli army. When we left the garden, after prayer, there was Israeli soldier position on the road.
Classic name.
We've been told by witnesses that the IDF first fired tear gas and then there were live shots as the activists were retreating into an olive grove.
The army was about 200 meters away from us up the road, but they had placed snipers on the roof of the adjacent building to where we'd come from. I heard a fellow volunteer shouting for help and turned to see Aisha lying.
He looks very white to me.
I'm judging by the mustache. Kurds can
on the
be
ground.
pretty white.
Aishina was shot in the head. Her colleagues tried to help her. She was put into an ambulance, but couldn't be saved. The 26-year-old was pronounced dead at hospital.
The condition was critical. We tried to save the American citizen. We tried to revive her heartbeat several times, but unfortunately, we did not succeed in getting her heart to function again.
The Israeli military said its soldiers opened fire towards people throwing rocks and that the incident is under review. The United States has asked Israeli authorities to investigate immediately.
My deepest condolences. The deepest condolences.
Sorry that happened. Israel, would you please look into this for me?
It's legitimately pathetic, and it makes them look so fucking weak that they came out and be like, "Can you please investigate? Please investigate." Instead of, "Hey,
and again,
an American
this
died."
projection that people have that America is everywhere and all powerful.
Yeah,
Come
exactly.
on.
Like the response to this should have been coming out mad, coming out like China does, and being like, "You guys allowed an American citizen's death inside your supposed borders while doing illegal operations inside territory that isn't yours."
Don't forget, like Shireen, like she may have been like a more known Palestinian journalist, but she was an American as well that they shot in the head.
Yes, yeah. And that was like even more egregious because like press, clear press too.
Yeah, and it wasn't going on during this Hamas time where Israel gets immunity from everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they beat the fucking people, the pallbearers who carrying their casket, and caused them to drop the casket because it had a Palestinian flag on it.
Unfucking believable.
Absolutely monstrosity, you know?
Just repugnant, yeah.
The United States government to the family of Aishna Al-qeada.
I genuinely don't understand how anybody can support Israel. Like, it's gross at this point.
Deplore this tragic loss. Now, most important thing to do is to gather the facts.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're in the process of doing.
Yeah, and not
Today,
only
the
that, the
IDF
other
pulled out of
journalist that
Jenin.
she was with was pinned down. And like could see that and they were asking her what was going on. She's like, "No, she's dead. Like the bullet is through her head. She's dead."
For a 10-day raid of the northern West Bank town. The Israeli military says it uncovered weapons.
I mean, using
people as
pinned
bait
down for a while too, I think too.
Using people as bait is a war crime. Like, to injure somebody and use them as bait and kill people as they're coming to render aid is a literal war crime. Like, what they're doing there is a war crime, and nobody talks about it. Oh, they're dropping cluster bombs. Okay, but they've been doing this the whole time. Like, why are we splitting hairs? War crimes are war crimes. You know what I mean? I don't think that one is more severe than the other.
And explosives during its operations there. It has been a violent week. 40 people have now been killed and more than 145 reportedly injured over just the last 7 days in the West Bank.
Let's turn to the Middle East.
Alrighty.
Did you get the guy who shouted?
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?